In 1944, the British military operated a logistical machine of unprecedented scale. Every single crate of ammunition and soldier was documented with mathematical precision. This spreadsheet maps the Polish Second Corps. Columns for rank, serial number, and daily rations left no room for deviation. But row 18 of the 22nd Artillery Company contains a unique entry: a soldier named Wojtek, rank of private, receiving a double portion. This specific soldier had no fingerprints on file and wore no uniform. He stood 6 feet tall and weighed 500 pounds. Private Wojtek was a Syrian brown bear. He was an officially enlisted member of the Polish army, drawing a paycheck and holding a serial number. This is how a 500-pound apex predator ended up with a seat on a British transport ship and an official place in the records of the 22nd Artillery Transport Company. The path to that manifest began in 1939, when the Soviet Union rounded up hundreds of thousands of Polish citizens and soldiers, dragging them into the labor camps of the Siberian gulags. In 1941, the German invasion of the USSR forced a desperate Stalin to release these prisoners to form a new Allied force. This map tracks the tens of thousands of Poles who walked out of Siberia, heading south through Central Asia toward British-controlled territory. They were known as Anders' army, but they arrived in Iran as a collection of emaciated refugees. These were men who had lost their homes and their families, struggling to rebuild a military unit from nothing. At a crossroads in Iran, a group of these soldiers met a boy with a burlap sack. Inside was a starving, orphaned bear cub. The soldiers traded their meager rations, a few cans of meat and a chocolate bar, to take the cub with them. For men who had been stripped of everything, the cub was a way to reclaim a sense of normalcy. They named him Wojtek, which translates to joyful warrior, and he quickly became the central focus for the entire unit's morale. Wojtek grew alongside the men, eventually reaching 500 pounds. He slept in tents for warmth and became a regular in the unit's wrestling matches. In 1944, the 22nd was ordered to the front lines in Italy, arriving at the port of Alexandria to board the transport ship MS Batory. But the British embarkation officers stopped them at the gangplank. British High Command regulations were clear. No pets or mascots were permitted on board military vessels, with no exceptions for any unit. The Polish soldiers responded by formally enlisting the bear. They issued him a serial number, a paybook, and the rank of private. This transformed him from a mascot into a legal member of the Polish Second Corps. The British officer looked at the paperwork and found it to be in perfect order. Private Wojtek was on the roster, which meant the military's own rules required him to be allowed on the ship. The officer stamped the manifest. The bear walked up the gangplank and boarded the ship alongside his fellow soldiers. By May 1944, the unit arrived at Monte Cassino. This mountaintop monastery was a German stronghold that had already withstood 3 massive Allied offensives. The Polish Second Corps was tasked with the final assault. The terrain was a nightmare of steep, muddy slopes under constant artillery fire. To keep the Allied guns firing, soldiers had to manually carry 100-pound wooden crates of shells up the treacherous mountain tracks. The men were frequently exhausted and pinned down by incoming fire. During the heat of the battle, Wojtek stood up on his hind legs and began mimicry of the men. He accepted the live 100-pound crates and carried them completely effortlessly through the thick mud toward the artillery lines. Witnesses noted the bear's lack of fear. Amidst the roar of heavy guns and the whistle of shrapnel, Wojtek worked for days, never dropping a single shell. The bear had moved beyond his role as a psychological comfort for the troops. He had become a functional, working part of the ammunition supply line during one of the war's most brutal battles. After the victory at Monte Cassino, Wojtek was promoted to the rank of corporal. The 22nd Transport Company even changed its official insignia to this image of a bear carrying a field gun shell. When the war ended, the political landscape shifted again. Poland fell under Soviet control, and the soldiers of Anders' army, who escaped Stalin once, were forced into exile in Scotland. Corporal Wojtek was demobilized with his unit and moved to the Edinburgh Zoo in 1947. He spent the rest of his life in this enclosure. His comrades never abandoned him. Veterans would visit the zoo and call to him in Polish, and Wojtek would sit up and wave his paws. Some soldiers even climbed the fences to wrestle their old friend one last time. Military history is usually told through maps and casualty counts, but in the archives of the 22nd Transport Company, those records include a 500-pound corporal who carried their shells and remained loyal to the men who saved him.